It is so good to see everybody together again and to be able to launch a new year. And as we do that, I want to acknowledge that we have been through an extraordinary difficult time. Humanity, this country, our community. Everybody has been struggling with COVID, condition that hasn't ended yet, and struggling to find a new normal after years of isolation, separation, not being able to connect as we are built to do and as we would hope to do. Zoom has both mitigated and contributed to a sense of alienation. And we don't really know what to do with all of the electronics at our disposal and how to be human in such a world. This has been 2 years in which the deans have struggled with health issues. And thank God Rabbi Artson is recovered and well again. And so far the good Lord is leaving me alone. So I'm hoping that we will all be fully present and be able to be there for each other in ways that we haven't been able to be for the last 2 years. We live in a world of increasing uncertainty about the future of religion, about how to create institutions to serve people's spiritual hunger and desire for belonging and connection. And then at the Ziegler School, there's been all sorts of uncertainty and challenges, not least of which a completely new curriculum, being able to find us a new campus, and other challenges that we have faced as a community. So I want to invite us into a year of rebirth, a year of recommitment to each other and to the mission towards which we aspire. There are all kinds of challenges and opportunities that come from our being together. And in speaking with the Dean team and with the faculty this summer, we've decided to make this a year of covenant, a year of deciding what does it mean to be in covenant with each other and with God and with Torah. And so I'd like to launch that process today by sharing some thoughts about what does it mean to be covenanted? What does it mean to re-engage with each other? And what do we all need to bring to the table to be able to do that successfully? I'm aware that what we're going to be asking of each other is a presence and a trust and an ability to navigate the specifics of our own identities and an embrace of identities different than our own. So how do we navigate all of that? How do we find a way to love each other not in theory, but in practice? As a kid growing up, one of the favorite comic series was Peanuts. And there's a character, Linus Van Pelt, whose more famous sister, Lucy, is the one who keeps yanking the football away. For those of you who are ancient, you may remember this. And Linus had a great line. He said, "I love humanity, it's people I can't stand." And I think in that regard, he's like a lot of us. We like people in theory. We're even in favor of diversity in theory, but not if you don't agree with me, and not if you don't live your life the way I do. And the challenge here is that people never come in the ideal. They never come in the theoretical. There's always actual people who are living actual lives. We are each of us gendered. We each of us carry a flock of racial and ethnic identities. We each of us have relationships to faith communities, economic status, our age, our education, on and on and on. People are always particular people. There is no actual humanity. There's just lots and lots of actual people. And so learning how to honor and to love actual people takes what I believe is a kind of open-minded, expansive tribalism. So I want to speak on behalf of tribalism for a moment. If people are always actual people, particular people, then we are going to come together in various overlapping circles as Jews, as members of a particular subcommunity of Jews, as people who belong to this organization or that organization, or identify with this orientation or that orientation, or no orientation. This gender, that gender, no gender. But we all come with labels that we choose and labels that others put on us. And the labels always both identify and distort, just like clothing does. So to be able to navigate that world, to be able to cultivate an identity that is both particular but not triumphalist, that is specific and not exclusive, that allows us to have provisional identities that change over time sometimes, that honor different identities, both chosen and given. That, I think, is the task at hand for all of us. And then, of course, to take these expanding circles of identity, locale, faith, gender, state, country, and broaden it into a kind of cosmic consciousness, a planetary consciousness. I was asked yesterday why I wear this pin, right? And this is a pin of the planet on which we live. There are no borders, there are no boundaries. This is where we all live together, and we all have to succeed together. But we don't do that by sacrificing our particularity. We do it by understanding that our particular identities are our portal into our humanity, into our shared commitment to the earth. So how do we frame this covenantal community? First thing I want to offer is the idea that we are linked in a mutuality. Have we not all one parent? Did not one God create us? Why do we break faith with one another, profaning the covenant of our ancestors, says the prophet Malachi. We do have one parent. We are all united in that. And if we violate our connections to each other, it turns out the prophets remind us that is turning our back on the one who made us as well. There is something both timeless and contemporary in being covenanted. It links us to the generations that have gone before. It links us all the way back to Sarah and to Abraham, and it links us all the way to the most distant messianic future. But its focus is right now. What are we doing now to live up to being the children of Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob, Rachel, and Leah? How are they, at their best, manifest in our choices and in how we treat each other? That also means that our choices are reciprocal. They are not simply narcissistic self-interest, but our tradition pushes us to think about the consequences of our decisions for others who are not us, for the locale in which we live, for the sacredness of the land, for other peoples. How do we keep an aspirational vision of who we could be if we take each other into account? How do we make that part of an expansive self-identity? I'd like us to think about that together too. And towards that point, I have 4 practices I want to recommend to us as community. The first is, love is as love does. If all you do is speak love and dignity, but you don't demonstrate it by how we treat each other, the words are less than worthless. Love is as love does. One of the great contributions of biblical Hebrew to the English language was when the King James Committee was translating the Bible into that beautiful and archaic English. And when they got to the word chesed, they realized there wasn't an English word that covers love in action. And so the word loving kindness entered the English lexicon because the Hebrew Bible pushed them in such a direction. Don't think of love as an inner feeling, although it is that in part. Love is manifest in what we do with each other, how we treat each other. Tana Deve Eliyahu says, "This is what the Holy One said to Israel. My children, I have withheld nothing from you. And what do I seek from you? Ha'eni mevakesh ele shetiyu ohavim ze et ze uteho mechabdin ze et ze." I seek no more than that you love one another and that you honor one another. Can we be a community that looks to each other not simply for what we need from each other, not simply for what we can get from each other? Can we love each other? For those of you Buber fans, can we I thou each other and not just I it? Second, to live in covenant requires generosity, and generosity on at least 2 levels. There's a wonderful story told in Masechet Nidarim that when God gave the Torah to Moses, God was giving it really to Moses. Here, Moses, I'm giving you this Torah. That is what the Torah says. And what does Moses do with this private possession? Frankly, the most prized possession imaginable. Moses immediately turns around and gives it to the Jewish people. And the rabbis noticed that he didn't have to do that. There was no conditional, I'm loaning you this so you can share it. It's yours, I'm giving it to you. And Moses knows that really precious gifts are most fun when they're shared. That generosity benefits the giver as much as the receiver. So we have to be able to be generous with each other, sharing our wisdom, our experience, our hopes, our lives, in a spirit of generosity. But the second kind of generosity I want us to hold on to is found in Pirkei Avot. That we're told there by Joshua ben Parachia, "V'heve dan et kol ha'adam l'chav zchut," that each person should judge the other person in as charitable a way as possible. If there's a way to understand what someone did or said in a way that is harsh and constricted and narrow, and there's a way to construe what they said or did in a way that is broad and caring and kind, or maybe just harmless, go for that. Dan l'chav zchut. Can we give each other the benefit of the doubt? We are all trying. We are all doing the best we can. We are all put upon, and we have more on our plate than we know what to do with, but we all mean to be our best. Can we approach each other in that way, offering critique when we need to, saying that something wasn't good enough when that is the case, but can we do it without impugning each other's motives? Can we honor each other's best intentions? I don't see how we can have community if we don't do that. Third trait I want to hold out for you is curiosity. Can we approach each other with real curiosity? Now, here's the thing about curiosity that I think is so crucial. You have to assume you don't understand the other person fully. Otherwise, there's nothing to be curious about. So instead of coming up with, I know what motivated them, I know what they're really thinking, can we train ourselves to ask, why did you say that? What did you mean by that? What is it you need from me right now? If we are curious with each other, then we bring a kind of humility to the business of being in relationship, but a capacity to surprise each other and to be able to be present for each other, because curiosity opens doors. It makes room for us. And then the last virtue I want to propose for us as a community is that of embracing shared responsibility. And here, my heroine in that is Rachav, who's one of the Bible's most interesting characters. For many, many reasons, both professional and ethnic, she should have been utterly indifferent to the Israelites who were tromping through her town. But she didn't. She saw in them human beings who needed her protection, her wisdom, her experience. And so, with no self-interest, she went beyond herself to make possible the survival of those Israelite scouts who otherwise would have lost their lives. The rest of the history of the Bible, of our being in the land, is dependent upon this non-Israelite woman who was an outcast in her own culture. Can we find our inner Rachav? Instead of always doing what is easy or self-interested, can we figure out what the others need, what our community needs, and then rise up to it and make the effort on behalf of each other and the community we want? In our earliest days as a people in the land of Israel, we had no king, we had no central government, we had no standing army, we had no police force, we had no prisons. What we had was a shared vision, a shared commitment to values, a set of history that we had in common, and an aspiration of destiny that we held together. And volunteers rose up whenever the community had a need. It's the one time in our history when we have on record that not just men, but also a woman was able to lead our people and to save us. So this remarkable time in our nation's past glistens as an ideal for us, to not be reliant on outside force necessarily, not necessarily to fix things just through rules, although rules matter, but to be able to each of us be responsible for who we are together collectively, and to be able to rise up like Rachav, like our ancestors, and to be able to do what is needed so that God's light shines because of who we are as individuals and as a community. I bless you this year that we together should take steps for the rebirth of a wonderful little engine that could rabbinical school. I think we can. I think we can.